welcome back to our second video. At the end of our first video, our first discussion, we talked about how God is in complete control of everything, no matter what, no matter how big and no matter how small, and we can rest and hope in that. But Pastor Geary, then the next question naturally flows from that, then should I believe that God has caused the coronavirus?
Well, that's a very good question. I think the answers in Scripture indicate that we must believe that God created the world. Mm-hmm. And if he created the world, then he created all of the microorganisms that are in the world as well.
Right.
But we need to look at this optimistically instead of pessimistically. Let me explain it this way. The overwhelming vast majority of microorganisms are needed for life on this planet and for our good health.
Right.
That's my understanding. And so if there is a microorganism that seems to take over from time to time, we need to remember that God imposes limits on the suffering and on the calamity and the problems that microorganism causes.
Yeah.
The Bible gives us plenty of information. We have a resource that we use here a lot, a topical analysis of the Bible that has an interesting, simple outline under the providence of God when it comes to evil. And the providence of God refers to God's works in this world. And under the providence of God in evil, there's 4 headings here. Providence, number 1, directs evil. Number 2, it limits evil. Number 3, it permits evil. And number 4, it prevents evil. We need to keep it all in perspective.
Right.
We need to see that God uses everything for his purpose and for his good.
Yeah, going off what you said, I think a great illustration from the Bible as far as God directing evil, even permitting evil, and how he is in control of all that comes from the life of Joseph. And as you know, after his brothers sold him into slavery and he spent years in Egypt, he reveals himself to his brothers. They finally meet up again at the end of his story, and he has come to the conclusion that even though they were intending to do him harm, God was intending for that whole situation to be good. He even says that on 2 separate occasions. In Genesis 45, starting in verse 7, he says it the first time. This is right as he reveals himself to his brothers. And he says to them, "And God sent me before you to preserve a posterity for you in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh and lord of all his house and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt." But it's not like he just said that then. He says it again later after his father dies and his brothers are afraid that maybe Joseph won't honor his promise to his dad and not come back after them again. They say, remember your promise. And Joseph says this to them. He says, because he's convinced that God is using all this for good. He says, "But as for you, you meant evil against me. But God, he meant it for good, in order to bring about all that it is this day, to save many people alive." It's just amazing that God will take the greatest evil and he can work it to the most magnificent good.
Yeah, his purposes are not going to be frustrated. And when a virus gets out of hand, to put it that way, then he's going to rein it in. He's going to use it for his purpose.
Right.
And so there's a promise in the New Testament that says to those of us who love the Lord that all things work together for good to those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. Yeah. So we can be absolutely sure that God's going to take situations that are negative and pessimistic for us when we look at them